Let's get started. This video is to introduce you to the overview of Logic, where everything is. So first things first, File, New, once you've selected Logic Pro, and then you can choose which kind of instrument you want to select. MIDI instruments, software instruments, instruments that aren't real, it's this one here. If you want to record audio, it's this one here. Let's just create that. So the first thing you need to know about is this quick help button, which loads up this tiny little window here. Now everything that you hover the mouse over, it will explain what that is, what it's called, and it will also give you a shortcut in brackets as to how you can quickly load it up. Shortcuts are super important, so get to know them. Let's start with the workspace. So the workspace is this area here. That's where you'll be placing MIDI, you'll be placing audio, and if time goes from left to right, you can move the playhead, which is this thing here, and tracks will be here. So if I want to add another track, I can press add, and I can add an audio track, or I can add a software instrument track. The next part is the inspector. So the inspector is this window that pops up on the left-hand side. It shows us two things. One, the channel for whichever track we've selected. So if I select the classic piano, it will show me the channel strip for the classic piano. And then it will also show me the stereo out one. We can get this to do other things, but all you need to know is that this gives us a shortcut to the mixing desk channel. The next thing is the library. The library is where all of the presets are located. So if I'm on my software instrument, I can go and find different instruments. So this is my electric piano. If I wanted to load up a bass, I select bass in the library, or I can search for it, for an alien space probe, for example. There we are. So that's the library, and we can reduce it. The next thing is smart controls, which is this area here. This is quite good because it allows you to modify an instrument quite quickly. So for example, all of these controllers here will allow you to morph the sound. Whichever software instrument you're on will have a different visual outlook about what you can edit. So for example, this is the classic piano, where you can change the sound and add drive, and so on. So that's the smart control. The next thing is the mixer, or the mixing desk. This has got every single track. It has a channel for every single track, your stereo out, and finally your master output. This is going to be very, very useful when mixing. The next control is the editor. So the editor is really useful to edit things such as MIDI events, for example. Where you can draw MIDI information. Or if we had audio, we could chop it up. So that's the editor. Pardon me. The next part is the display. That's this area here. Currently it shows us the location of the playhead, the tempo of the piece, the time signature, and the key. We can change the tempo up here. We can also view time, which will be really useful if you're making a piece of music that needs to last a certain amount of time. Wherever you put the playhead, it will show you. So it shows you we're in the first hour, no minutes, 26 seconds, and then this is frames. So that's the display section here. If we go all the way to the right, we'll see that we have the notepad, where you can keep notes. You can keep notes for the overall project or specific notes for specific tracks. This is really good if you're doing a collab or you're doing a project over many, many dates and you might forget. Loops is the next one. These are all royalty-free loops, so you can search for them. You can search for guitar, for example, and it will find you loops which you can listen to, and if you like them, you can drag them in. Okay, so that is the basic overview. We'll go over some of the buttons that I've missed, but that's the basic overview for now. The next thing is sorting out our input and output settings. These are located at the top here in Preferences, Audio. If you don't have all of these tools available, what you need to do is, your Logic might look like this, with simplified mode on the top right. All you have to do is click on this, enable the complete features, and then close it. And now you'll have Logic that looks exactly like mine. Okay, moving on. Input and output settings. So an input is where we receive audio from, and an output is where do we send audio to. So they're located here. Output device at the moment is my speakers, and my input device is my microphone on the MacBook. If I wanted to set this up as an interface like the Scarlett, I would just select input device and select the Scarlett, and then press apply. Adding a new track is done by this. If you have a track you're already working on and you want a duplicate or a clone of it, so to do something slightly different on, you can just press this button here, which will duplicate the track that you've selected with the mouse. If you want to get rid of stuff, backspace. The next buttons are found here. So we've got the mute button. What this does is it stops this track going any further, so it's not allowed to go anywhere else on the mixing desk. So we won't hear it. So for example, whereas solo, the button next to it, is the opposite. It will mute everything else. So if I solo this one, you can see that this is grayed out because we won't hear it. The next button is record arm, which is this R. What this does is it tells Logic when we press this big record button on the top near the display, Logic will be listening and looking out for information from this track, and it will record it here. For example, I might not be able to do this as I'm doing a video, but try it out yourself. Record arm a track, press record and play some MIDI notes, and you'll see that it works. The next thing is the volume. That's the overall volume for this channel. Let me just demonstrate this. And the last one is panning. This controls how much we hear in the left speaker or the right speaker. If we send it all the way to the right, all we hear is in the right side. If we send it all the way to the left, all we hear is on the left side. Back over here then, near the display, we have go back a bar and go forward a bar. We also have go back to the beginning, play, stop, go back to the beginning, record, and a really important one, cycle or loop this region. So if I want to work on this region here, I can create a loop or a cycle region here. And now when I press play, Logic will just cycle through here instead of going any further. This can be expanded by stretching it, grabbing the top left and top right. If we now go to the right of the display, we'll see that there's a tuner button. The tuner button only works for audio inputs, audio channels. And what it will do is it will allow us to tune instruments which require tuning. For example, guitars, ukuleles, basses, pretty much anything that has the ability to be tuned. So you can load this up and then it will show us. This is currently showing me the note of my voice. So for example, ooh, that's a C. This button here is the count-in. So whenever we press record, it's going to give us 4 clicks before it starts recording. This is the equivalent of a drummer at the beginning of a song saying 1, 2, 3, 4. If you don't want it, you can get rid of it. If you want it, you can put it on. The next button is the click track or metronome. It sounds like this. It allows your musicians to keep in time if there's nobody that they need to keep in time with. Really useful in recording. If you want to get to finer settings, you can control click on this button, go to metronome settings, where you can change the tone and the volume of it. This is really good if your musician is struggling to hear it. Okay. Next we have the master volume. This isn't a track volume. This is the volume that controls everything that you hear out of the speakers. So you can turn this up and down. Next skill you need to know is bouncing. So once you've completed your project and you're like, I'm happy with this, I now want to share it with my friends, my audience, I need to get it outside of Logic, because unless they have a Mac and they've bought Logic, they're not going to be able to experience this. So the simplest way of bouncing something out is to create a cycle region above it all and press Command B. Selecting PCM will allow you to choose a wave format, 16-bit, and press OK, where you can then bounce it to your desktop. This will then allow anyone with a computer or a mobile phone to actually listen to your music. You can also upload it to every single sharing platform or distributor. Color is found through Alt-C, where we can color different regions by simply selecting on them and choosing a different color. Select All is a shortcut which allows us to select every single region, MIDI and audio, by clicking and pressing Command A. Now everything is selected. You can see that because it's highlighted. Okay, now this is essentially the basics on the outside of Logic. Now if we go to the workspace and press T, we'll actually find a tool menu where we have access to lots of different tools that we can use. So the first one that we have is the pointer tool. That will allow us to click and drag and move things around. We can also grab the bottom right to resize, to make it to shorten our region. We can grab the top right to loop our region. Bottom left to reduce the beginning. The scissors tool, scissors, will allow us to chop the audio. The join tool will allow us to glue them back together. So if I wanted this guitar part to play in this order, I could just chop it up, rearrange it, select everything I want to glue together on this channel, tool, join, or glue, click it together, create a new one, and there we go. We've now glued it all back together. Fades can be used by clicking and dragging in from the outsides. What this will do is it will change the volume. It will increase it on the way in and decrease it on the way out. There's also a nifty little feature here where we can right click and choose speed up or slow down, and now we have this. It's like a record stopping. Finally, we have the gain tool, which I don't have available on here, but you will have. And what this will do is it will allow you to reduce the volume of just this region. So say, for example, we had two regions here, and I wanted to reduce the volume of this one, but not this one. I could just reduce the gain of this one, and you can see that it's getting smaller here. We're almost at the end. Dragging a copy is done by Alt click or Option click. So you hold Option, you drag it around, and then you let go of the mouse before letting go of the Option key. Command click is this button here. So you can select a secondary tool. So instead of having to go to the tool menu all the time, you can just hold Command, and now I have access to the scissors, which is located up here. So you can choose the command tool to be different. Moving on, we have the snap menu, which is this here. So when we move something around, you will see that Logic tries to snap it to certain areas. That means it will line up with our lines, our timelines at the top. And it makes it really easy to do. However, for some reason, Logic comes set up to absolute value, which makes it kind of hard to line up sometimes because it doesn't snap to where you want it to. So I recommend setting this to absolute value, to set it to absolute value, because that is the most effective way of doing this. So that's the snap menu. Next, we have the drag menu. Let me just get 2 audio files to demonstrate this. So when we have 2 audio files and we drag them over the top of each other, what will happen is there's no overlap. So the one that we dragged over the top shortens the previous one. There is other options. We can select an X fade. Now when we drag something over the top, you'll see that a crossfade has happened. So we have a fade on the back region going out and a fade coming in on the region on the top. This is quite useful, and it makes blending parts sound a lot more pleasant. Next, we have the waveform zoom. So this is really useful if you're working on projects where it's hard to see the waves. So we can click on this and it will make the waves look bigger, so they're easier to spot. You can also click and hold, which will bring up this slider here. So if you still have very, very small waves, you can zoom in to see them. Then we have horizontal zoom, vertical zoom, and finally going over some audio regions tools. So if we have an audio region, like this one here, and we'd like to edit it, if we open up the inspector, on the left hand side we have this regions tab. This will allow us to loop the selected region, mute it, transpose it, moving it up or down a note. So for example, this is up 2 notes. This is back to normal. And this is down 2 notes. 2 semitones. Fine tune allows us to tune between the 50 cents that are the difference between one semitone and the next semitone. We also have flex and follow, which, if this is on, this will play to the project's beat tempo. And as I reduce the tempo, it will keep to that tempo. However, if this is off, it won't sync up with the project anymore, and it will kind of sound out of time because it will not be in the same tempo as our project. Gain is over here, just showing you before. If we click on more, we access the fade in and the fade out, which, let me just open up the editor. We can see that the fade tool will allow us to put a fade on there and a fade out also. We can also reverse an audio region by pressing the reverse button. And on some files, but not every file, you can change the speed of it. This would be located here. And that is everything for the overview of Logic. I know it's been quick, but I hope you get some use out of it. And don't forget, this quick help is your best friend. Hover the mouse over anything and it will explain what's going on.